No, Your Honor.
And lastly, sir, showing you people 22, if I may. Do you recognize the items shown in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what are they?
They appear to be the item number 9, the right glove, and item number 57, or item number 37 in this case.
The left glove?
Yes.
And are they, what position are they shown in that photograph?
They appear to be the palm up sides.
And item number 9, is that the item you collected from 360 Rockingham on June the 13th?
Yes, it is.
And item number 37, is that the item you collected from 875 South Bundy on June the 13th?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Uelmen.
Mr. Fung, how many criminalists are employed by the Los Angeles Police Department?
I believe there are approximately 50.
But you were the only criminalist directly responsible for the collection of evidentiary items at both locations in this case, that is at Rockingham and at Bundy, is that correct?
I was in charge of both scenes as far as the evidence was concerned, yes.
Were there any other criminalists other than the person you were training accompanying you?
For a short time, one of the assistant lab directors was at the scene.
And who was that?
That was Chief Forensic Chemist Stephen Johnson.
And which scene was Mr. Johnson at?
Mr. Johnson was at first the Rockingham scene and then at the Bundy scene.
Did he collect any of the evidence at either of those scenes?
No, he did not.
His purpose was just to observe?
Yes.
Are you able to tell whether a substance is blood just by looking at it?
Not 100%. I had a lot of experience searching for blood and collecting blood, so I've got a good idea of when blood is present, but I'm not infallible.
Well, do you base that impression on the color?
That is one of the factors, yes.
What are the other factors?
The color is a factor. Texture, the solubility of the blood, or stain at that point. There are other things, but that's mainly what I go by.
Well, solubility isn't something you observe by sight, is it?
No, it is not.
You ascertain solubility by the testing that you perform.
Yes.
And do you use the same standard presumptive test whenever you do testing at the scene?
There are other presumptive tests available to me and other criminalists, but that is the phenolphthalein and hydrogen peroxide test is the one we usually use.
All right. And is that the test you used for all of the testing you did at these two locations on June 13th?
Yes.
Could you describe how that test is done?
First of all, a cotton swab is wet with distilled water. It is applied to the suspected stain, and some of the stain should transfer onto that cotton swab. If that occurs, then phenolphthalein is applied to the swab, and through my experience, I have noticed a slight greenish tinge appear at that point. After that occurs, then I will put hydrogen peroxide on it, and at that point, an immediate pink color could show up if it is positive.
Is that referred to then as a two-stage phenolphthalein test?
Yes, it is.
All right. You do not perform on a routine basis then the three-stage phenolphthalein test?
I don't know what that is. I don't know what the method is.
All right. Now, the test that you're describing, you mentioned, is not specific for blood. That is, other substances will also give a positive reaction. Is that correct?
Yes.
And these substances include a number of vegetable substances. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
For example, onions.
I'm not familiar with all the plant-like materials that will give a false positive, but I know that some do.
Well, is there any category of vegetable substances that you're aware of that give positive substances or positive reactions?
I've just read in the literature, and things that pop out in my mind right now are cabbage, apple, I believe apricot, but
How about
I'm not.
garlic?
It may. I'd have to look it up in the literature.
Beetroot,
I don't remember.
cucumber,
It may be,
horseradish,
possibly.
lettuce,
I'd have to refer to the literature.
potato.
Again, I'd have to refer to the literature.
And of course, the presumptive test that you've described does not tell us whether blood is human blood, does it?
That is correct.
That is a determination that can only be done in the laboratory?
Yes.
So of course, you didn't tell anyone that any of the testing you had done at either of these locations on June 13th established that any of these stains were human blood, did you?
I did not state that.
That would mean then, of course, that we could not exclude the possibility of blood having come from an animal such as a dog based on the tests that you did.
That is possible.
Now, you identified a blood stain on the photograph marked as Exhibit 5F, which was numbered with a tag that indicates number 8. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you point to where the blood stain is on that photograph? All right, so you're pointing to the little round mark in the center of the picture.
Yes.
There appears to be another reddish mark above that. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is that a blood stain?
No, that is a drop of water.
A drop of water?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, looking at a blood stain, you of course don't know the age of a particular stain. You don't know how long it has been there. Is that correct?
In general terms, you can tell if a stain is fresh or it's been subjected to weathering. So you can tell if it's an old stain or a fresh stain.
All right, what would you define as a fresh stain?
A fresh stain would have a reddish appearance to it, and an older stain would be brown or to dark, very dark.
How quickly does a fresh stain become more brown in appearance?
That depends on several factors. The more it is subjected to sunlight or heat, the faster it will turn that darker color.
I see. So once the sun comes out and things start warming up, it becomes important for you to collect your samples as quickly as possible, doesn't it?
That's correct.
You were unable to ascertain, in fact, whether a particular set of stains were all contemporaneous, that is, were all dropped at the same time, aren't you?
They appeared to be relatively fresh stains. They did not have the darker...
I'm not speaking of any particular stains at this point. Are you able to tell just by looking at stains whether they were all placed or dropped at the same time?
Generally, no.
Now, let's refer first to the investigation you did at the Rockingham address. I believe the location of item number 9, the glove that you recovered at Rockingham,
Yes.
that was particularly called to your attention by Detective Van Adder?
Yes.
And what did he ask you to particularly look for in your process of recovering that glove?
At one point, he asked me to see if there was any blood on the glove.
Anything else?
He asked me to measure it and preserve the evidence also.
Anything else?
That's all I can remember.
All right. Now, to ascertain whether there was blood on the glove, you did a presumptive test.
Yes.
You applied a cotton swatch to the glove?
No, a cotton swab.
Cotton swab?
Like a Q-tip type thing.
All right. What portion of the glove did you apply that swab to?
I believe whatever area was facing upwards, I looked for a darker area than appeared on the rest of the glove, and applied the wet swab to that portion and performed the rest of the test.
Do you recall where that portion was?
No, I don't.
Was the glove lying palm up or back up?
I'd have to refer to the photographs.
All right, let's do that. Putting Exhibit 4 up.
I'm sorry, is that 4? My note was that 4 had been withdrawn.
I believe that's 9.
This is number 9?
Number 9.
Okay.
Excuse me. sorry, it had two numbers on it. The grand jury exhibit is 4, but it's exhibit 9.
Okay.
Have you located where you applied the swab to the glove?
I don't recall where exactly I applied the swab to the glove.
Right. Does the photo in Exhibit 9D depict the position of the glove as you found it?
From the best of my recollection, yes.
Now, you mentioned that one reason you don't routinely do presumptive tests on all of the evidence that you encounter is because the manipulation of the evidence may lose valuable trace evidence, I believe you said.
Yes.
Right. But you did manipulate the glove in order to do a presumptive test, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Now, were you, or did you attempt to locate any stains or footprints in the location leading up to that glove?
I looked for them, however, I did not find any.
Did you examine carefully for any disturbance in the pattern of debris leading up to the glove?
I did not notice any discernible pattern of that I could differentiate from randomness.
Well, would that assist you in ascertaining whether someone had dropped the glove there or whether they had thrown the glove there from some other location?
I don't really understand the question.
Would any disturbance in the debris pattern assist you in determining whether the glove had been dropped there or thrown there?
In certain circumstances, it might.
So it would become important then to preserve the pattern of the debris leading up to the glove, wouldn't it?
Well, objection, that's an incomplete hypothetical. It assumes that no other disturbance has occurred between the occurrence of dropping the glove and this witness arriving at the scene.
Overruled. You can answer that if you're able to.
Could you repeat the question?
Wouldn't it be important to preserve whatever patterns there might be in the debris leading up to the glove in order to ascertain whether it had been dropped or tossed?
If that was a major factor in the case, it might be, yes.
And of course, the more people traipsing back to look at the glove, the more disturbance there would be in the debris pattern, wouldn't there?
Yes.
Well, objection, that assumes there's such a thing as a debris pattern. Assumes that's not in evidence.
Overruled.
Now, the pattern that you referred to in the pavement proceeded in the direction of the entrance to the house?
The pattern in the pavement?
Are you referring to the
Yes.
blood droplets on the
drops.
driveway?
The drops that you examined in the driveway at Rockingham.
Yes.
They did not proceed to the glove.
No.
Now, you mentioned that you remained at the Rockingham premises until 10 a.m.?
Yes.
So you were there approximately 3 hours?
Just about, yes.
And you didn't arrive then at the 875 South Bundy premises until 10:15 in the morning?
Yes.
And that was the first time anyone began collecting any evidence or swatches of blood at the premises at 875 South Bundy?
To my knowledge, yes.
Now, your property report simply indicates the time that you arrive at the premises. Is that correct?
Yes,
It does not indicate the time you recovered any particular item at the premises.
that's correct.
So your property report for the morning of June 13th at the Rockingham location just indicated 7:10 in the morning.
That's when I arrived at the scene, yes.
All right. How long after you arrived did you take swatches of the drops that appeared to be blood in the driveway?
That occurred around 9 to 9:30 in the morning.
Did the collection of this evidence follow the chronology of the numbers that you assigned to each item?
Could you repeat the question?
Did your collection of these items correspond to the chronology of the numbers you assigned? For example, you would have collected item number 1 first and item number 7 after item number 6?
I believe so.
So you assign these numbers chronologically as you collect each item?
No, I will assign numbers to the items I am going to collect, measure them off, and then after measuring and documenting with photography is done, then I will go ahead and start collecting.
So the last step in your process is to actually collect the samples after you've identified all of the numbers that you plan to assign.
Generally speaking, yes. That's not a hard and fast rule, though.
Now you said when you arrived, or after you arrived at the Bundy premises, you saw the bodies being removed. Is that correct?
Yes.
What time were the bodies removed?
Approximately 10:30, around then.
15 minutes after you arrived?
That's a rough approximation.
Now, when you collect the samples on the damp swatches
Yes.
of the drops that you suspect may be blood,
Yes.
do you take more than one swatch of each?
If the sample is large enough, I'll try to collect a large sample, which may be more than one or up to, or just maybe a thread if it's not very much. It depends on the size of the sample.
So if you have a larger sample, will you get 2 or 3 swatches of the same sample?
Usually, yes.
Did you measure the distance between the drops that you located on the pavement leading to the rear of the premises?
I measured the drops that I collected, yes.
All right, so referring then to what have been numbered, (112, 113, 114, and 115 on exhibit number 19. You could tell us the distance between each of those things.
Yes.
Could you tell us how far apart they were?
I can give you the measurements that I have taken. I'm not really great with math, so I don't want to do a subtraction right now.
Okay.
Photo ID 112, which is item 47, was collected approximately 44 feet west of the west curb of Bundy and 10 inches north of the north wall of the condo or apartment or whatever it is. Photo ID 113, which is item number 48, was recovered 56 feet west of the west curb of Bundy and 3 feet north of the north curb. Which probably means wall or the side of the house.
Do you have curb in your notes?
Yes, I did.
All right.
Photo ID 114 was located 86 feet west of the west curb of Bundy and 1 foot 10 inches north of the north wall. And photo ID 115, which is item number 50, was recovered 38 feet 8 inches east of the west edge of the rear driveway and 1 foot 10 inches north of the north wall of the building.
Right, now you're using two different reference points. Numbers 112, 113, and 114 were measured for their distance from Bundy,
Yes.
and number 115 was measured for its distance from the rear driveway.
Yes, it was.
All right, how far apart were 114 and 115?
We've gone back with the forensic draftsman, and that's all measured off now, but I don't have that in my notes.
Now, in the photos that appear in the exhibit, there appears to be a variation in the color of the spots or drops that are numbered on that exhibit.
There's a slight variation, yes.
Where do you see the variation?
In photograph E with the marker 114, it appears slightly different color from 115 in the photograph.
Would that suggest to you the possibility of a different age of that particular mark?
I would tend to put that more on an effect of photography than I would an actual difference in color.
Well, isn't the purpose of the photography to uniformly record the appearance of the evidence that you encounter at the scene?
Theoretically, yes, but in practice, color is variable from photograph to photograph.
Well, aren't the photographers instructed to photograph each item of evidence from the same angle
Generally, yes.
and using the same lighting conditions for each item of evidence?
Generally, yes.
Now, with respect to the vial of blood labeled O.J. Simpson that you submitted to the criminologist in serology?
The criminalist,
Criminalist?
yes.
I'm sorry. Who was the criminalist to whom you submitted that?
I believe I gave it to Colin Yamauchi.
Now, is this the same Colin Yamauchi who gave you the blood samples from the victims?
Yes.
Why would you be giving him samples when he's giving you samples of others?
On June 13th, I received a vial of blood with O.J. Simpson's name on it from Detective Van Adder. And on June 15th, just 2 days later, Detective Van Adder gave Colin the two samples of blood from the coroner's office, and in turn, Colin then gave me the samples to book.
Okay, but Colin did not give you the sample of Mr. Simpson's blood back, is that correct?
He gave me back the sample from Mr. Simpson's blood on the same day that I gave it to him, which was on June 14th, 1994.
What was your purpose in giving it to him then, if he immediately gave it back to you?
He took an aliquot from that sample and then gave me the remaining portion of the vial.
He took a what?
Small sample.
What's the
Aliquot.
word that you referred to? Aliquot?
Yes.
Do you want to spell that for us?
Aliquot, I believe it's the spelling.
And did you record then the amount of blood in the vial when you gave it to Mr. Yamauchi and the amount when you got it back?
No, I did not.
So you don't know how much you took?
No, I don't.
And you don't know how much was in the vial whenever you turned it over to someone else?
It appeared to be pretty much full.
And who did you turn it over to?
At what point?
After you got it from Mr. Yamauchi?
Once I had labeled it and assigned it a item number, I then booked it into our property division, our SID property.
What does SID stand for?
Scientific Investigation Division.
And is that sample then kept under refrigeration?
Yes, it is.
Were all of the samples you collected kept under refrigeration?
I booked them to be refrigerated, yes.
All of the swatches that you'd collected?
Swatches I booked to be frozen.
Thank you. If I could have just a moment.
Yes.
Now, do you maintain some sort of inventory of all of the items that you collected?
Yes, and I prepare a property report for that purpose.
And is the property report then the last control you have over the exhibits?
Once I book them into property, then my portion of the chain of custody ends there until I may be asked to go back and analyze something, then it starts up again.
And have you been asked to go back and analyze some of the items that you collected?
No real scientific analysis, I've been asked to go back and describe some of the evidence a little bit better for the detectives, and that's about it.
Have you encountered any situations where any of the evidence you recovered was missing?
I don't recall anything at this point in time, no.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Ms. Clark, anything further?
Briefly.
All right.
Sir, the bloodstains at the Rockingham address, do they all appear to you to be fairly fresh?
They appeared to be, yes.
Similar in color?
Roughly, yes.
And the stains at the Bundy address, do they all appear to be fairly fresh
Yes,
and similar in color?
yes.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Uelmen, anything else? Thank you, Mr. Fung. You're free to go. Do not discuss your testimony with any other witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
People call Greg Matheson.
Face the clerk, please, and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Gregory Matheson, Gregory, Matheson.
Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Ellen. Mr. Matheson, tell us what you do for a living.
I'm a supervising criminalist employed by the City of Los Angeles, working for the Los Angeles Police Department Crime Lab.
Did you receive some education as your part of your background to achieve that employment?
Yes, I did.
What is it?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in criminalistics from California State University at Long Beach.
Can you define criminalistics for us?
Well, criminalistics is a science that is involved with the collection, preservation, and analysis of physical evidence. We employ a lot of different natural sciences towards that end.
And as a student, sir, did you begin to learn the field of criminalistics by working in some fashion?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
Well, initially, prior to working for the Los Angeles Police Department as a criminalist, I was a student worker or community service officer for the Culver City Police Department. In that capacity, I learned how the department operates. I had a chance to learn something about field investigations, fingerprinting, crime scene photography.
Now, did you indicate how long you've been a criminalist with the Los Angeles Police Department for?
No, not yet. I have been a criminalist with the City of Los Angeles for just over 16 years.
And of those 16 years, how much of them was spent doing latent prints or serology or other?
Well, as a criminalist, I never have done any sort of latent print work. I started initially, about my first 18 months, I was assigned to the toxicology unit of the crime lab. I was then moved to an area called special testing. I was in that for a little over 18 months. And then I was assigned to the serology unit. I've been in the serology unit in one capacity or another for the last 13 years.
What is a serology unit? What does it do?
Well, the serology portion or unit of the criminalistics laboratory is involved in the identification and analysis of body fluids. Our interest is first identifying whether or not a particular fluid or stain is a fluid of interest, and then once that's identified, to be able to determine the genetic markers or the makeup of that stain or fluid in an attempt to compare it back to a possible source of origin.
Now, is your current position one of a supervisory nature, or is it one of the rank and file, if you will?
Well, currently, and for the last 5 years, I've been supervisor of the serology unit.
Have you ever supervised any unit other than the serology unit?
Yes. The first 4 years as supervisor was strictly of the serology unit, but starting last, I believe it was last July or August, I also was placed over direct supervisory control of our trace comparative unit, our field unit, the forensic photographer, and our chemical processing unit.
What's a field unit?
We have a couple of criminalists assigned to what we call the field unit. These are criminalists that are responsible for handling responses to daytime field calls. They're also, at that time, either working in another unit or also training in another discipline.
Now, have you taken any courses with respect to your position with LAPD as a criminalist?
Well, specifically, as far as an academic course, I attended a 2-week class that was offered by the FBI in their academy in Quantico, Virginia, and it was titled Biochemical Analysis of Blood Stains. It was offered at the academy, but through the University of Virginia.
And was there any training that you received while on the job when you began with LAPD from other criminalists?
Yes, throughout my career, you receive on-the-job training from other criminalists. Upon entering a new unit, even though you have the basic scientific background to understand the concepts and things that are being presented, you always have to learn from the criminalists that have been in the unit for a while exactly the procedures and specific techniques that are utilized by that unit. So yes, the first several years was involved in picking up these techniques from the criminals that had been performing them for quite a while.
Now, have you received any kind of certifications or become a member of any professional organizations?
Yes, I'm a member of 2 professional organizations and hold 2 voluntary professional certificates.
The professional certificates are what?
Well, one of them was initially offered by the California Association of Criminalists, and it was a certificate of professional competency in criminalistics, or a general background certificate on the whole field of criminalistics. Approximately, I believe it was about 1.5 years ago or so, the program was turned over to the American Board of Criminalistics, which rather than being a state-based body, is a national body organization whose sole purpose is the certification of criminalists throughout the country.
And do you have some position with respect to the American Board of Criminalists now?
Well, I received what's called diplomate status of that organization, or general knowledge of criminalistics.
And the California Association of Criminalists, is that a professional organization?
Yes, it is. It's what's called a regional association of forensic scientists that is, even though it's based in California and the majority of the members are in California, we have quite a few in other states and in a few other countries.
And how long have you been a member?
I believe I joined in 1979.
Do they have certain standards for certification in that organization?
The standards to become certified, yes, you need to be in the field for 2 years, plus pass a written examination.
Did you have something to do with developing those standards for certification, sir?
Yes.
What did you have to do with them?
Well, in January of 1987, I was placed by the association as the chair of what was called the Certification Committee, and it was that committee that established the program that eventually became the CAC's certification program. As committee chair, I was involved in establishing the minimum standards, figuring out the processes that would be used in handling the whole certification sequence, along with working with the criminalists that were assigned making up the general test.
Have you held any executive-type positions in any of the other organizations, such as the American Board of Criminalists?
Yes, the American Board of Criminalistics, when it was formed, because of my association with the California Association of Criminalists, I was asked to be part of the original formation of the ABC, or the American Board of Criminalistics, and I held the position of vice president of that organization.
Are you familiar with an organization named the California Association of Crime Lab Directors?
Yes, I am.
Are you a member of that?
Yes.
For about how long?
It's been not quite 5 years, I believe.
And with respect to the California Association of Criminalists, have you held any executive positions in that organization?
Yes, I have.
What have you held?
Well, up until May of 1994, the previous 4 years, I held board of director positions. The first year, I was what was called the regional director south, or the regional director for the southern part of the state. Then I was elected to president-elect position, served 1 year as that, 1 year as president, and the last year was board position of immediate past president. As of May, I was off the board of directors.
Do you do any teaching, sir?
Occasionally, yes.
And what kind of teaching do you do?
Well, mainly it's within the department. I teach serology and basic field techniques at the homicide detective school, the sexual assault detective school, and more recently the detective supervisor's school. I also was able to be involved in, I believe it was in 1987, 4 training sessions that were offered throughout the state by the Office of Criminal Justice Planning on the new protocol that was established for collecting sexual assault evidence.
At the current time, you are a supervising criminalist?
Yes, that's correct.
What are your duties, sir?
Well, I have direct supervisory control of, I believe it's 19 employees at this time, and in that role have basic administrative control or responsibility over the units that I mentioned earlier, assigning days off, handling sick reports, all the sort of administrative things that go along with that. In addition to those duties, I still am involved in some of the day-to-day operation of the technical aspects of the serology unit, which is more my specialty than the other ones. A regular duty of that position is I read all the reports that are created by the criminalists within that unit, do both a technical review of the report and check for just misspellings, wordings, and that sort of thing. Towards that end, I examine the report, pull all the notes associated with the report, make sure that the data that is presented in the report fits the raw data that was obtained during the course of the analysis, and then make sure that the data that is included in the report is consistent with the conclusions, that the conclusions can be supported by that data.
So you're still involved in the technical aspect of things, the actual work that's done in the serology unit?
That's correct, not to the same extent that I used to, but towards that end, I also am involved with occasionally confirming electrophoresis results, which is one of the techniques that's used in the laboratory.
And that is one of your functions as a supervisor, is occasionally to be called upon to confirm results?
That's correct.
And in that regard, sir, in serology, is it one of the functions to detect genetic markers such as ABO and proteins and enzymes?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us what is meant by that, ABO, enzymes, proteins?
Well, within, probably for simplicity, we'll just talk about blood stains. There are other body fluids that the unit deals with, but in somebody's blood, there are what are called genetic markers. These are factors that exist in the blood that are acquired genetically from your parents and exist in certain discrete types. Probably the best example that can be given of that is something that most people are aware of, and that's the ABO blood typing system. That's one of the genetic markers that we look at. You are either a type A, a type B, a type AB, or a type O, and that is determined by the types that your parents have. In addition to the ABO system, there are also other genetic markers that are enzymes or proteins that are found in the blood system, and they also exist in discrete types, just like I described in the ABO system. An example being one that goes by the name of esterase D, or ESD. You're either type 1, type 2-1, or type 2. These types, through a variety of techniques, are identifiable in a blood stain. Once a stain is categorized, then we analyze a liquid sample from a known source to see if there's similarities between, if they have the same types. If they have the same types, they could have the same source. If there's a difference in the types that are found, then that person is eliminated. It's a source of the blood stain.
And that's very typically what you do in that serology unit, forensically speaking, is that you determine whether an item of evidence, say a blood stain found at a crime scene, could have come from a particular person by comparing the types found in the blood stain to the type of blood withdrawn from the person.
Well, that's the main thrust of the unit, is to perform these analyses, not only to try and include somebody, but also to exclude somebody. If the types differ, then they are excluded as being a source of that sample.
Now, you referred earlier to the method known as electrophoresis,
Yes.
and can you describe very briefly for us what that is?
Electrophoresis is a technique that's utilized to determine the types of the enzymes or proteins that I mentioned earlier. It's not used in the ABO system, but in these enzymes. Simply put, a protein or an enzyme, depending on the structure of it, will have a slightly different charge to it. So the technique involves pouring a plate that's maybe 8 inches square, something like that, with agarose, which is kind of a jello type material. The samples then are placed on threads and established in a certain location on the gel. Current is allowed to run through it, and the enzymes or the proteins that are located in that sample then are spread out throughout this gel. When that's done, certain identification chemicals, visualization chemicals, are placed on top of it that react with the individual enzymes and allow us to see where they travel to. In essence, we get a band that appears in the gel at a certain spot. We always run controls on those, say of a known type, which tells us where a band is supposed to show up for a particular type. If a unknown sample matches the location of those bands of a known sample, we then can assign that type to the unknown sample.
So you first take a known sample and see how it runs on the gel, and see where it marks?
Well, it's not done consecutively, it's done at the same time. A typical gel will have, say, 12 different samples on it, and out of those 12, you may have 4 known or standard samples on it, and the remaining 8 or 9 spots are taken up with unknown samples. They're all run together so you can do a direct comparison of the locations of the bands to each other.
Now, with the with the enzyme and protein testing, in addition to the ABO testing, are you able to give smaller numbers in terms of the number of people that could possibly have been the origin of a blood stain, for example?
That's correct. Part of the comparison involves trying to add some significance to the information that we receive. Example being, going back to the ABO blood system, if we determine that a stain is ABO type O, that exists in about 48, we can say 50% or half of the population. If we just had that one test, all that would do would be to eliminate half of the population and include the other half as a possible source of that blood. At that point, we would run some of these enzymes, and with each additional marker or with each type that we determine, the potential population of people that could have left that stain gets smaller and smaller. If we have a blood stain that's a type O, which is 50% of the population, and identify another factor that is also 50% of the population, the combination of those two means now you're down to 25%, or you've cut the number in half. With each additional test, that number or possibility gets smaller and smaller.
Now, in this particular case, sir, did you supervise and assist in the testing of some blood stains and blood samples?
I supervised and assisted in part of it, and I directly ran the tests in part of it.
In your experience, sir, is all evidence received by a lab for analysis bear a DR number?
Yes, it does.
And does each case have its own discrete DR number in order to keep all of the evidence organized in one place?
That's correct.
In this case, is this case been assigned DR number 9408-17431?
Yes, it has.
And on June the 24th, were you asked to do serological testing on item numbers 17, 59, 60, and 49?
On the June 24th was the date the request was made. I was not around when that request was made. I actually didn't find out about it till the next day, and then didn't start the testing until the 27th.
Okay. Now, item number 17, is that described as the whole blood of the defendant, or Mr. Orenthal Simpson?
Yes, it is.
And number 59, is that described as the whole blood of Nicole Brown Simpson?
Yes, it is.
And number 60, is that described as the whole blood of Ronald Goldman?
Yes, it is.
And number 49, is that described as the blood recovered from the crime scene as photo ID number 114?
That's correct.
And showing you, sir, People's 19, photograph E, do you see the number 114 in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And does that correspond then to the photo number of the item number 49 that you tested in this case?
That's correct.
What test did you perform with respect to item number 49 first?
With respect to that item, I ran a presumptive test for the presence of blood to determine whether or not the stain was in fact blood. Then I ran a test to determine whether or not it was human in origin. The additional test run at that point was the ABO test that I've previously described, and then 2 enzyme tests, one of them that goes by the designation of group 1, which includes 3 enzymes, and then an additional test that goes by the designation of PGM subtype.
So you subjected that to ABO testing as well as electrophoresis?
That's correct.
Now, with respect to...
Excuse me, Ms. Clark, I think I'm going to interrupt at this particular point in time. It's just about 4:30, and so we will continue with this tomorrow. Mr. Matheson, please come back tomorrow. Do not discuss your testimony with anyone except the lawyers involved in this matter.